I'm delighted to be able to welcome Tom to the session today. Like I said, let's go back to the first slide. Well done, Andrew. There we go. Delighted to welcome Tom to the session today from Jampan. Tom, over to you.
Thank you, Andrew, and hello, everybody. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy days to join us. Today, we are going to talk all about learning technology, return of investment. It's always a key topic. It's one that always gets a lot of interest. So we do really appreciate you coming along to listen to me today. So my name's Tom Pape. I'm head of learner experience and technology at Jampan. I've worked at Jampan for around about 2 years. Before that, I was a consultant. I ran my own consultancy advisory learning digital company for about 4+ years. And before that, I worked in the world of BT, British Telecom in the UK, which is a global company. Many will probably know it. And I spent 20 years of my career working in various different roles in there, but I predominantly spent a lot of time in the learning development and talent space in global HR. So been working in the industry for around 15 years, which makes me feel really old. Been working very much with mid to large global organizations, many of them you will know of. And hopefully today we can share with you some experience that we've had, somewhere we've fallen over and picked ourselves up, somewhere we've really succeeded over our careers, and also with our clients, that we can share with you today and you can take away and use in your world. So that's me. We'll move on to the next slide. Quickly about Jampan before we kind of talk about the whole technology part, which is that what makes us learning and talent platform special is the fact that we do work with global organizations. We work with global organizations that have up to 350 to 400,000 people globally. So we do work with very complex organizations with very complex requirements. And one thing that we do, and we are doing currently from an advisory and consultancy perspective, is that we do work very closely getting to understand what the organizational needs of the organizations are. We do like to look in terms of the technologies and what that'll deliver based on the features and capabilities. And as I'll tell you in a second, you will be told one thing, but necessarily that might not be what you end up with. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a second as well. And of course, we'll help clients with considering the cost, both the initial cost, but also the long-term management of that system and platforms and the support required as well, which is sometimes often overlooked. So that's what Jampan does. So first, I'm going to ask you a question, actually. So I didn't want this all to be me talking at you. The first thing I was going to ask you, and it's a very simple question, knowing who I am, knowing what we're talking about today, I'd like to know why you guys are here. So if you can use your general chat and let me know, that would be great. And I will shut up for a second.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, why are you here? I know why I'm here. I'm here to facilitate this session, but this topic is ROI and learning technology. I'm really interested. Why are you here? I can see people are already frantically typing, so we'll leave it a second. And you're still frantically typing, and they haven't come through yet.
And if you can hear someone snoring, it's my dog, by the way. It's not anybody else.
Similarly, my cat is doing the rounds this morning, so if she suddenly decides to jump up on the next to the microphone, it amplifies her purr so loudly. So apologies in advance. And we are getting some answers through, so brilliant stuff. So let's have a look here. So we've got JJ Nebrega getting ideas about how to evidence ROI with reliable data. Oh, I love that. Reliable data. That's a great point, because there's data and then there's reliable data. I actually blogged about that today. What have we got here? Kerry, understand what I should be measuring. That's good. Neve, he's currently looking to ROI in terms of investing in specialist line training for line managers. Hear about new initiatives on L&D ROI, says Mohammed. And Lorraine's talking about professional development, keeping up with the latest thinking, which we always like to try and do. Anand, ROI is always an interesting topic. I agree with you entirely, Anand. Here to learn what methodology. Roxana, broaden knowledge. And Kevin talking about embarking on a project to replace multiple LMSs. So finding out what should be looking out for. Are there any answers, anything they're picking that's prompting you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the ROI is coming up quite a lot, right? I think we all kind of are challenged in our world in terms of getting that return of investment, what that looks like. That might be trying to justify to the business to invest more money in a certain area, which is always a challenge. So a lot of people have to put business cases and go cap in hand looking for money. But it also might be that you're looking at a current initiative or program that you're trying to deliver across those platforms and looking to show that it's successful or not. So that's kind of what I'm picking up here.
It's interesting. The we seem to be in. There's a couple of groups. I think there's a group who want to know about what's new and how to do it, but then we've got people who've maybe got some specifics who are looking at. Joanna, I see, is saying again similar to Kevin, replace LMS. Want to know about what to pay attention to. So it seems to be we've got probably two groups I can think: people who've got a specific need and people who probably just a more general need, perhaps. I think, but again, and I love Siobhan's comment as well. Practical application, absolutely. It's all about the practice because we can all talk about the theory, but it's the practice that matters most.
Great. All right, we'll move on. Thanks, folks. Thanks for doing that. We'll move on. So let's talk about recommendations for learning platform success. We're going to talk about some kind of do's and one particular don't. As you go through, if you have any questions, as Andrew said, please put them through, and we will come back and answer those as best we can. And I'll try and make it as precise and as useful for you. But you always have the time for questions at the end if you want to. So let's look at tip number one. Future proofing. When you're looking at new technology, it's really important that you ensure that your platform is going to be adaptable with your emerging business. And because technologies, as we know, move very, very quickly, methodologies, as talked about in the chat, are often changing, and people have different flavors and different focuses dependent on where they are and the businesses they're working in. So when you're looking at this, it's important also to understand your audience as well, and you need to identify the needs and preferences of your target audience and tailor your learning platform to meet those special requirements. Sounds easier said than done, but you really need to understand your audience and what they need. The most important thing, second to that, is understanding your business. So, what is key to success to your part of your organization? What are the business drivers? Are you linked to their strategies? So, you need to be looking at kind of internal growth and developmental for future skills, increase internal promotions. Is it to drive those promotions internally because external hires are very expensive? Is it to try and increase retention? It could be multiple different reasons of what you're trying to do, but it needs to tie in with your organization. So second point is understand your business. You also need to think about the user experience, and I'm kind of all for Amazon's approach really, which is you start with the user and you work your way back. Start with the customer and you work your way back. Exactly the same thing, because you can develop the best platform, the best content strategy. You can have it lined up to your business strategy, and you know exactly what you're doing. But if you don't think about the user experience, from a digital perspective, how easy it is to access, find stuff, etc., then you've probably failed. So user experience is a really key one. Does it have a user-friendly interface? Is it intuitive? Can people navigate easily? Can they search for stuff? The amount of clients that we work with who have platforms that it takes way more than 3 clicks to find anything, and then when you do finally do search something, you can end up with thousands of results. So it's really important you think of it from a user experience as well. And then you kind of lead on to the engaging content side of it. So you need to think about your content strategy in terms of what you're delivering to the people, because you can build the motorway, but you've got to put the right vehicles on the motorway. So terrible analogy, but that's how it works. So think about your content, think about how engaging that is. Does it support user experience, and does it deliver what you're trying to deliver for the business? Do you have the right partners in mind? Do you have the right internal content, etc.? These are the things you really need to think about. Mobile compatibility, so accessibility. Can people access it both on a desk or deskless? We work with clients who have the challenge where they might be in manufacturing, for example, in a global organization, and to be able to push content and get people really to adopt and engage in learning, digital learning, is difficult because they're not sat as we are right now at a desk. So mobile compatibility or ability to access content when you're on the move is key as well. Again, dependent on your organization and going right back to the beginning, dependent on your audience. But you need to think about that. Will your platform be able to support that accessibility if people aren't at the desk and are on the move? And then the other one, last on this one, is to think about feedback mechanisms. So you need to think about how you're going to implement that kind of continuous improvement mechanism to encourage learners to provide feedback on that. They are the best people to tell you if something is working or not working. I have seen so many organizations fail because, and I'll be honest, they've done backslapping. They've said, we've done a great job. We've delivered the right platform. We've got the right content. Great. And then they've just walked away and that's it. And they've not really kept that continuous drumbeat of feedback and reviewed and analysed that feedback to improve the system it goes forward. So forget that at your peril. Make sure that you are keeping a mechanism in place once you get that for platform usability and make improvements as you go forward. So that's tip number one. I'm sorry again if my dog is snoring. He's a Cavalier King Charles and he does snore very loudly. I do apologise. Okay, tip two. Cost and return of investment. So this is understanding the initial expenses and long-term benefits of the platform, and that's really key things to think about. Platforms, in the very essence, depending on your size, can cost several £1,000s and can cost in excess of hundreds of thousands of pounds. In some organizations, this costs millions of pounds over a period of time. So it's something you really need to understand when you're kind of getting your strategy together for looking at new platforms and technology. You need to think about what your business is going to get over the contract. So sometimes it's 1 year, sometimes it's rolling. Most of the time, it's 3 years with suppliers. What does success look like in terms of spending that amount of money, and then what are they going to get back? So you need to start thinking about what does that return of investment look like. Obviously, with many organizations, you won't be able to make that investment unless you have a business case. So you'll have to do a lot of legwork early doors to be able to sell it back to the business, usually finance and the senior team, to say we need to invest X amount of money to deliver a new platform. Well, a new platform on its own is not going to fix your problems, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The platform is only a means to an end. It's a vehicle in which to deliver what you need to deliver, but it will not fix anything. So you need to think about that, how you develop your business case over the long-term benefits of the platform over time. If you start to think about that before you go anywhere near about doing demos or buying anything, you're in a good place. Let's move on. So the next one is tip three, which is scalability and customization. And this is really important because you need to explore the capabilities of the platform to scale seamlessly, increasing user demands while being tailored to meet specific organizational needs. It's really important that you think about how you grow and how you get better. And what you will find with many suppliers is that they will oversell a lot of the time. So they will give you what you want to hear, right? And I'm not knocking them because they're all kind of challenged to deliver the best product to you guys, and they're all wanting to make that sale. But it's key to understand that you may only get a percentage of what you need. It might not be 100%, it might be 90, 80% of what you absolutely need. So you need to think about how that's going to work for you in terms of your organizational needs as you go forward. One thing we talk about in terms of scalability and customization is it's really important to review your tech stack. And one thing that we do often work with our clients on is that sometimes most people are like magpies. And what I mean there is they're like shiny things and they want to go and buy something new to fix a problem. And that's fine if you're buying a phone or something and your old phone's not working and you think it's slow, it's not working, it's glitchy, it's starting to look a bit tired, it's got a cracked screen. Well, of course, I'm just going to go and buy a new phone, right? And get a new contract or whatever. But with a platform, you'll probably have a platform already. If you don't, fine, you can go straight to reviewing that and starting an RFI and so on and start to review what's out there. But if you haven't and you've already got a platform, it's important you do some work first before you go anywhere near kind of buying something shiny and new. So we have a kind of 5-step process about reviewing your stack that we want to share with you. First one is research. We talked a bit about this before. What are the problems you're trying to solve? It's really important that you kind of analyze where you are now and where you want to get to. Before going anywhere near any kind of technology. So think about what problems are you trying to solve and how would you like to try and fix those. The next one is around assess the technology that you already have and access to, and is it compatible? So it's amazing how many clients that we work with where we work on optimization. And what we mean there is we take what they have and we help them look across their people and their processes and their governance to try and improve what they already have. So we're shining up what they've already got. And often they've probably got a technology that will do a lot of the things that they're trying to solve, but they're just not set up for success. So the organization might not be set up from the back end in terms of the internal teams managing the system, or working in the learning development or tech talent or people capability space that they're in. So it's really important that you look at that people process governance bit, and also look at the current technology you've got. What is it it's doing at the moment? Why is it not working for your current audience? And find out by speaking to that audience. As we said, you start with your users and work your way back to ask them why they feel it's not working. You'll probably find that 9 times out of 10, you might be able to optimize what you've got, which will save you a lot of time and money. I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm saying you might need to go to a new kit, but it's certainly worth looking at as well. So you can maximize what you have, or you'll get to a point where you think, you know what, we want to, for example, we want to really develop skills, future skills. We want to analyze people's skills. We want return on investment of skills. We want to know where people are in the organization, where we've got kind of strength in certain skills, where we've got obviously gaps in certain skills, and all of that. Well, your system might not do that, and therefore you might need an LXP that does that for you. So there'll be challenges there. There'll be things that you probably can do and things you probably can't do, and you'll get to that point where you go, we know what we want. The other thing is you need to think about integration, and integration is something we deal with a lot in Jampan with our clients. You often find that certainly with medium to large organizations, they will have different platforms doing different things. I'm sure you've had that same challenge yourselves. So for example, you might have an HRIS system that manages all your people data, your people activities. You then might have an LMS, a learning management system, that does your compliance training and so on. And then you might have other systems like Talent Marketplace, for example, where people can opt in to develop themselves through projects. You might not have that, but you'll have different systems in different pockets. And what we find with lots of organizations is that these systems tend to operate in silos. Now, there are companies out there who are trying to build a full 360 tech stack, and they'll say, well, we can offer you this and that and everything you need. We offer all of those modules and we can do everything. And that sounds great, sounds easy as well. And IT like that because it's easy to implement. It's one system, dealing with one supplier, easier to integrate and so on. But it might not necessarily be the right way for your business. So don't be tripped by that one either. But you will often find that IT and finance like to do that side of things, which is it's one supplier, it's easy, we get a good price, let's whack that in. And therefore you'll end up with a HR system that also offers learning systems, other modules as well. So think about that as well if you are in that position. That does the system work well for you? Will it integrate with other systems that you've got? And often, many of the times, the integrations aren't necessarily easy to do. So we do work with clients to help them integrate as best we can, and that might be dynamic APIs or whatever else it might be. So integration is key. Does it work with your current ecosystem? Will you be able to bring the systems together? And why would you bring the systems together? Well, it all goes back to that user experience. What's the user experience going from one system to the next system to the next system? Is it as seamless as you can make it? And then the last point on this slide is test and learn. Okay, so this goes without saying. I'm sure you guys all do this anyway, but make sure you're 100% deployed, test and pilot. So a proof of concept is a good thing to do. Test it in certain areas, kick the tires on it, try and break it, get users to feedback on it. Do as much testing as you possibly can and learn from that before you launch. We've worked with a lot of clients who are very time bound to deliver things in a certain time, but we always try and elbow in proof of concept time and time to test to save any issues of failing right at the beginning. And the reason I say that is you have a very small window to sell to your users, to your learners, that this is the right system for them. And if they go on there, and I'm sure we've all done it as well, if you go on to something, whether it be a platform or an app or anything else, and it doesn't do what you need it to do quite quickly, people don't have the time or the energy or the patience to hang around and continue. And as soon as you've lost them, it's really difficult to get them back in again. So that's why that testing learning part is equally as important as those other 4 areas we just talked about. So that's a little bit around scalability and customization. That's a reviewing the tech stack. Hopefully you've picked something up from that, and we'll move on. Data analytics is always an interesting one. So harnessing the power of data analytics is really, really key. Many businesses are driven by data-driven content, and they need to know the science behind it. Is it really going to improve what we're trying to do? Is it going to hamper what we're trying to do? And I need to know, often many organizations need to know, if we're spending this, what are we going to get back? Are we going to get back a return of investment? So data and analytics are really, really important. So when you're putting in a system or a platform, or you're looking at the optimization of your current system, obviously data analytics and reporting are really, really key to be able to help you as a key leverage to see whether you're being successful or not. And that's why when we went back into the earlier points, that it's really important to understand what is the business trying to achieve, what does success look like for them, so then you can start to line those things up with your data and analytics, and then you can start to create a number of measurements that you can start to then measure over time to see whether the platform and all of the programs and initiative you're driving over those systems are going to be successful or not. And there are multiple ways you can do that. So, I mean, you've probably heard, I'll kind of list a load off. You've got learning objective achievements, where you can evaluate whether learners have achieved their intended learning objectives. You've got knowledge retention, so you can go back and check on a regular basis if that's the requirement you need for that particular role. You've got engagement metrics about people completion rates. People often go to completion rates, but time spent on modules, interaction levels, touch points, heat points, all that type of stuff. Feedback and surveys, so reaching out to people and saying, or doing it automated and saying, you've just done this, what do you think? And you can rate it and get that back and then review it on a like-for-like basis. You can do skill analysis and improvement. As I say, a lot of companies at the moment are very skills focused, and that might be role based, simple approach to skills focus, where each role has 10 to 15 skills as part of a skills taxonomy, or it might be more of a detailed capability framework where there's a lot more to it. And you want to be able to see, okay, where's an individual in their role is on the skills required to do that job. What's their career progression look like? They want to kind of go up here. They're here at the moment. They want to go to there. So what skills do they need to get to that level? And therefore, then they can identify what those skills are and then start developing those skills. And all of the content, the initiatives and programs are there in your platform to help drive that. At the same time, the platform allows you to measure those skills. So they do individual skill measurement, or they'll be measured by their line manager, or they'll be measured by a more in-depth assessment. But it's things you need to think about in terms of data analytics, in terms of getting back. So that user analytics piece is quite key. There, cost effectiveness is another one you can use in terms of data and analytics, of getting that money back if you're spending something. So if we launch this and do this, will that save us money in terms of manual resources, admin, or it'll mean that we're more productive and people will be able to get from A to B quicker in whatever they're trying to do, and be more efficient. So that's another way you can look at it. There's other stuff you can do, and I won't kind of go through too much more than that, but there are many data and analytics you can look at to be able to show the return of investment on the platform. But the good thing is if you do the work at the beginning rather than once you've put the system in, you'll be in a really good place, because you can actually go out to, if you went to an RFP, a request for information, and you had a number of suppliers who were demonstrating it to you, that could be part of your absolute must-haves, rather than nice to haves. And therefore you'll get that 80% that you're after, that we talked about earlier. Okay, so that's number 4. How are we doing for time? We're okay. Okay, let's talk about the big one then. So one to avoid, that you need to think about if you're ever looking at looking at new platforms and return of investment here, is impulsive buying. It's really easy to go and buy something that's unplanned because there's a need right at your front door. So there might be such a need that it's just get it done. We need to do it, just get something in, and you might go out there and go, oh, that'll do it, and you'll rush it in and off it'll go. And it might solve that initial problem, but based on other tips we've given you about being sustainable and whether it's the right value, getting the right value over time, it might come back to bite you a little bit. So you've got to be really careful about impulsive buying. And what I also mean by that is you may be impulse buying because you are basing your knowledge of this piece of kit from a previous role or another organization you've worked in. We've seen where it's worked in one organization and they've said, well, it worked really well in my last organization, so I'm going to lift and shift that. I've got the relationship with the supplier, I know who they are, I know the system, and they bring that over into the new world. And for various reasons, it just does not work because they are two different, culturally different organizations. So it's just something to be aware of. We've also seen people do that and it works. So just be very careful that you don't do it just because you've seen it working somewhere else, or that you've seen a really good demo, or you've got a friend who uses that particular product and it works really well. Make sure that you kick the tires on everything you look at, and make sure that you ask the suppliers to um, supply you with the evidence that it's going to give you all of the absolute must-haves that you need, that you've worked on, the last 4 points that you've worked on, before you agree to do anything. So don't do anything too quickly if you have the time to do it. The other thing I mentioned before is, and I do hate to say it, but it is true, is that what they'll tend to do is salespeople in any industry will tend to oversell and underdeliver. Okay, I might be shot down on that, but that is true. So if you are presented to in demos, and I'm sure you've all been in demos, they will say, yes, it can do everything. It will do everything, or we'll look at it, or we'll get that fixed, whatever. But what you tend to realize now is a lot of the platforms that you're looking at are cloud-based. So the road for development, their roadmaps for development are very well considered, and they are not going to take a left field change for one client. They are going to measure all of the requirements of what's best for their business, what's best for their platform, but they're not going to say, oh, well, this client wants to do X, Y, and Z and go off piste a little bit, and change it. And I've very rarely seen that happen. And that then makes clients really unhappy with their suppliers. And that we deal with a lot of issues around that. So we work with the clients and the suppliers to try and fix those problems. So just be aware of that up front, in that you might be oversold and underdeliver. So it never hurts to be slightly aware and cautious in terms of what you're signing up to, because some of these contracts can be 3+ years, and as I say, can be very, very expensive. So that's something you just need to think about. And the last thing I think around the impulsive buying piece, before we slowly come to a close and we'll look at any questions and queries, because I've been talking at you guys more than enough, is that technology is not the only answer. Um, we are all magpies. We all like shiny things. Most of us like to go out and buy things, and therefore, buying a piece of kit to solve a problem seems natural to all of us, or most of us. You need to look at all the other things we've talked about. You need to look at your people, the way your organizational structure is. You need to look at your business strategy. You need to say what's important to your part of the organization in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. You need to think about the process. How are things currently working? Do they work well? Can they improve? Can we optimize what we've already got? Will we be able to make more of what we've got and spend our resources on making what we have work better? Or are we finding that actually we've come to a bit of a cliff edge and we can't go any further, and we're going to need to go out to an RFP? We're going to have to get some suppliers to come in and demonstrate what they can do, and therefore, we are going to have to invest over time. So, process and governance, looking at your people, all of that is really key to do at the beginning before going to the technology. And we've worked with a lot of people, and I've seen it a lot in my career of the 15+ years, where people have just gone, well, I just want to use that, or I want to use that, and that works for me. And it may only be a few £100, and that's fine. If it's a piece of relatively cheap software, then that's not going to hurt anybody. But when you start to spend thousands and thousands on a contracted system and platform, you really need to kick the tires on it before you commit to anything. So one thing also we'd say is about the tech cycle, really, is don't get stuck in the cycle, which is that you buy a new system. It tends to happen about every 3 or 4 years. I see it in most organizations. They'll buy a new technical platform that might come part of as we say, a suite of things. So it might be, and I'll just give you an example, it might be that HR, for example, have bought in a new HRIS system. And that'll always be probably far more important to the organization than an LMS or an LXP or a learning development people capability system. And they'll buy that in and they'll go, okay, we also know that system can do learning, and we know it can do talent marketplace, and we know it can do X and Y and Z. So we're just going to buy the suite. And that's decisions made up in the gods in HR and finance, or part of the board. They make that decision, and that gets then disseminated, and you guys would have to pick up that part, and then you launch the learning part of that system, and then you find that it does certain things okay, and it doesn't do other things. It's not aligned to your strategy. It's not aligned to what you need to do, and you can't support the business in delivering it. So people then get tired. Your users lose faith in it. People don't use it very often. Your adoption engagement becomes low. People aren't learning and developing as you'd hope they would. And then it gets to, right, okay, well, let's do it again. And then the system cycles again. You go, well, okay, that system doesn't work, so we're going to buy another system, and then just keeps jumping from tech to tech to tech to try and fix your problem. So I suppose the short conclusion of this is, don't just jump to buying new technology to fix your problems. You need to do a lot of legwork first before you go anywhere near purchasing anything. That's what we mean by don't get stuck in the cycle. How to break the cycle then? Very, very quickly, you need to look at it from the business perspective. What does success look like for them, as we talked about in the earlier ideas? You need to look at it from the user. I can't highlight that enough. Always look at it from the user perspective. Look at it through the eyes of the people you're going to drive this to. Will it work for them? And make sure that you create a very clear statement of requirements. So we talked about an RFP. Predominantly an RFP is a long list of a statement of requirements. It's things that you absolutely need to have versus things that you would be nice to have. And then you go through a scientific process of ticking through which suppliers will do those things for you. But be wary, they may all say that they do everything. So make sure you are quite strict on testing their thinking on what they can and can't deliver. Okay, that's kind of where we're coming to an end now. Just a little bit about Jampan, how we can help. If you need any help with any of this stuff, we can certainly help you around the consultancy, advisory, platforms, RFPs, overflow support. We do the whole end-to-end bit. As you've probably seen, I'm quite passionate about this. We've worked with many large organizations, so we've got a lot of experience in this space, and we've got a very great and experienced dedicated team behind that. So if you have any challenges, you know where we are. We do client solutions, which is talent on demand. So we offer hundreds of very experienced and skilled learning professionals that we place into organizations as an overflow to their own team. We also look at learning content. We build our own, and we also support learning content strategies as well. And we also do, and I think we've got one missing there. Yeah, we go. I've jumped to one. Learning experience and technology, which is the area I look after, which is where we do the consultancy advisory. We look at platforms and technologies. We do full learning landscapes where we hold a mirror back to the organizations. And we are doing a few large ones at the moment with some global well-known brands. We also are configuration specialists. We do a lot of implementations, and we've just done a really big implementation with a well-known broadcaster, so that's gone really well. And we look at multiple platform solutions. We are agnostic. We are not just linked to any one supplier, and we tend to look at what's right for the client and what's right for the user, so you can get what you need. And then finally, we do overflow support. So we do content curation, support desk optimization, and so on. That's all there. But anyway, that's enough about selling our wares. If you need any more information, there's the QR code if you need our help. Anyway, let's I think, Andrew, it's good maybe now to revisit if there's any questions.
And I always forget. I start talking and then suddenly realize I haven't put my microphone on. I do it all the time. The problem is because I've got headphones on, I can hear myself. That's the thing. But there we go. Thank you. Really, really useful, Tom. I've got loads of questions that I want to ask. There's some really interesting comments. So I actually asked a question in the chat, which is about this idea of a strategic plan for technology. Is, there seems to be a strategic plan for technology by the IT function, but not the learning function. Is that common? Do you see that in the work that you do?
So can you cut out? Maybe it's my end. Did you say?
Yeah, there seems to be. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, there's a strategic plan. There seems to be a strategic plan for technology from the IT function, but there's not a strategic plan for technology by the learning function.
Yes, I see that a lot. I've seen that a lot. Yeah.
But why is that, and how do we overcome that?
Well, my honest answer is I think that learning development, talent, that's part of people capability organizations, aren't always seen at the top of the pile in terms of being a priority to the business, if I'm being blatantly honest.
Mm.
I think generally the people that hold the checkbooks tend to sit in other slightly different areas of the organization. So it tends to be either very HR driven or very IT driven. And these decisions are then made with finance in terms of what they're doing, what they're trying to deliver. And I think that L&D, and I'll call it L&D, but I know there's different names of people capable. There's all different names now, but we just call it L&D for now, L&D and talent and so on. Those parts of the organization are sub elements of the main strategy of the organization. So it's not seen by a lot of organizations as key to their success. There is more a focus on other parts of the business, whether that be productivity, efficiency, whatever it might be. Developing people capability development isn't always the number one focus. So therefore, it's always way down the pecking order. So when they're signing up to new tech, I'm not saying that learning and L&D don't get a voice. Many organizations they do. I've seen lots of organizations very much being round the table discussing what their requirements are, but they're not always leading it. They're more being told to that that's what's happening rather than they're the ones driving it, if that makes sense. But I do see it
Yeah.
a lot. I see people do it really well, and I see people struggle with it.
It is. It's an interesting one. The another question came to mind as well. So the you talked a lot earlier on talking about research, but research is hard. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, it's hard work. Where do you start? How do you where do you go to start finding out whether your tech's working and what you might be able to use and so on? Because
Yeah.
it does feel like exactly as you say, a vendor market. You go to who shouts loudest and who's got the biggest stand kind of thing. So I'm really interested. Where do you start with that research?
Well, you can come to us for a start. We can help you with that.
Sorry, yeah. Let me throw it up and you
Just
knock
keep
it. Yeah, yeah,
keep
yeah, yeah,
opting.
yeah,
But
yeah.
no, there is a lot of noise out there, and it's a very saturated market. So there is lots of platforms all vying for your attention, whether it be LMS, LXP, TMP, and so on and so forth. There is lots of stuff out there. I see it very much like the car industry. There are lots of cars out there, lots of vehicle manufacturers out there, all selling us vehicles, right? All doing very similar things. They've all got four wheels, doors, an engine of sort, whether it be electric or diesel, petrol, or whatever. So there are multiple companies out there trying to sell you stuff, all doing very similar things. Some do certain things better than others. I would think they're all looking at each other, going, "How can we kind of get better or bug borrow and steal ideas and so on?" And I'm being blatantly honest here to help you guys. So that this is where we often do come in and work with clients because they are bamboozled by the offerings that are out there. It does depend. Where I would say where we start, and I think it goes back to my earlier points, Andrew. Before even going out there, I'd be looking internally first. I'd be speaking to my people in the organization. I'd be speaking to
Mm.
the stakeholders in the business. I'd be speaking to the users of the current tech and say, what's the experience like for you? How is it working for you? How are you developing yourself? What's stopping you developing? You will find out far more there before going anywhere near any shiny tech. For me, shiny tech is the last stop on the train ride. It's the last thing you get to.
Yeah, yeah. And again, reminder, everybody who's in the room now, you should have been on the session this morning where we're talking about customer experience and employee experience, exactly that stuff, and how do your employees feel about having to access maybe 30 different technologies in the workplace. So yeah, absolutely. Um, uh, you talked about piloting and testing and learning. So I've got a question around that as well. So what do you use to evaluate the success? Because it's really easy just to rely on, yeah, well, yeah, we liked it when, it was easy and yeah, we smiley, smiley, happy sheet kind of thing. What kind of things would you use to look at evaluating, whether platforms are working well?
So I think most people go to they used to call them happy sheets, didn't they? But they used
Yeah,
to use completions, didn't they? And say, well, somebody went in and completed it, or someone completed something but also passed a test at the end, or they got 80% plus of it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that means they learn. And that's okay. I mean, it's part of the data that you need. Of course, you need to know that people came in the room, did what you need to do, and then go out. But the question is, are they doing anything differently? Right. So, you want people to learn something, go away and do something differently, do something the way you want them to do it. Right. That's what learning is all about, I guess. So there is multiple ways you can do that. I mean, I see a lot of organizations successfully doing it via surveying, which is not complicated and everyone's got the tools to do that. Yes, it does involve a little bit of manual work, but you can set up very simple surveys, which I'm sure a lot of you have done, which you can ask a number of very simple questions, which is what worked well, what didn't work well, what would you like to see, did you find any challenges, etc., etc. What would you change? That's a really good way of getting that feedback. The problem with that, though, and I'm sure anyone that's ever done surveys before, is trying to get the feedback, because you can send out 100 and you only get maybe 5 or 10 back. So that will be your challenge there in terms of getting responses. But that is a very successful way of doing it. Some platforms and systems have it built in, and they will send regular updates in terms of whether that's worked or not. Also, kind of testing retention of knowledge as well. I know there's a lot of systems out there that will kind of do that drumbeat of testing and go, especially if it's something that could be life and death and so on and so forth. It's just stuff to be aware of, that you can do continually testing on retention and see if people's knowledge is still there, if they're doing a job that could be life or death, or it's very, very process driven. But there are multiple ways of doing it. But it just going out there and asking people quite simply is the best way of finding out. There is no other magic way of doing it. That's where most people do it. They just use different technologies to do it.
Excellent. Apologies, there's a bit of background noise in the room I'm in now, so apologies if anybody can hear other noise. Apologies for that. Interesting, a great question from Kevin May. It's not just for you, but also for everybody else here. The thoughts on the Fosway grid using for scoping the market and so on, and there's some interesting content there. So highly recommend people, if you haven't looked at it, look at the Fosway grid and see what comes out from there as well. I don't seem to have any more questions from the audience. I've got other things that I could ask, but people don't want to listen to me just ask you questions. Tom, I'm sure. Has anybody else got anything burning that they wanted to know? If not, more than happy to close down, because I know we were saying this could potentially be an hour, but it may not be. You can get the slides; they're available. So if you click on the link there, that will take you to the slides where you can register and get a copy of the slides. And you've got Tom and my contact details there. All right, okay. So we've got a couple of questions. We've got something in here from Anchor. What's that? Best practices linking LMS data to retention or OKRs?
Good question. Don't know the answer to that. OKRs. What do you mean by OKRs? Sorry, it's a new one to me.
Please, Anchor, if you could just tell us what you mean by OKRs.
Thanks, Anchor.
Thank you. And Dave, I think, is thinking of typing a question as well.
Great.
We'll hold on for a second. Lots of good comments. People saying very nice things. Objectives and key results, says Anchor. So how do we, learning platforms, best practices linking learning management system data to retention or objectives and key results?
So it goes back to well, it depends on the LMS, right? It depends on the system that you're using and what data you can get off the back of that, right? So some systems will be limited in what reporting that they can give you. A lot of them will only give you the very basic, which is how many people have engaged with the content, how many people have completed the content, what did they score if you had some kind of test in there. And that's kind of as much as it will give you. So it can be quite difficult depending on the platform you've got. It's not a simple answer to say you've got to just do A, B, and C and it's fix it, because you can't. It depends on your platform. Depends what your objectives are. Depends what the key results are. So I'm not going to give a very clear and probably the answer you want, which is it's all depends on your circumstances. All depends on your platform, your processes, your strategy, the people who are doing it. You need to look at all of that. But again, if it's something that's a challenge, we can always look at it offline.
Yeah, likewise, Anchor. I've been looking at this stuff as well for the last few months. There's definitely a piece to do with learning data and performance data and not being necessarily associated together. We have a question from Dave as well. Any examples of clients that have successfully been able to put user experience at the heart of their learning technology? So thinking it from the user perspective.
Yeah, I've worked with a few global clients that really understand the importance of UX. Lots don't, and you have to sell it to them because they're more focused about getting a new piece of technology in, or whatever their particular priorities are. But we have worked with several organizations that have just absolutely and fundamentally focused above all else around the user experience, and they've supported very clear proof of concept periods. They've got very clear success failure um, measurements in place. They have ring fenced people in the organization to be able to test it, as I keep saying, kick the tires on it. And they've worked with those people in the organization as part of an extended implementation team to make sure that it does everything that they need it to do. And they'll tend to pick out people from various different parts of the organization. Some are desk based, some are deskless. Um, some might be at various levels. You'll have your senior, your mid management, and so on. And so different levels of the organization, doing all different roles. And then they will get that feedback and act appropriately on that feedback. And I've seen some really great work being done on that. There was some interesting work done on the mobility and accessibility stuff, because we were finding with this particular organization, they were like screaming, "We definitely need mobile. We want mobile." But when they actually tested it, the majority, I think 85% or something of this population, and there were thousands of people, 85% of the people wanted to do it on their desk because they found that desk was more appropriate for them. However, if you move into the Asian markets, and certainly in some work that we've been doing in Hong Kong and China and so on, there is more of a need to use mobile and apps and so on. So that it depends on the culture, depends on the the different countries that are doing it. But it's just very very easy to use buzzwords and go, we must do mobile, or we must do this, or we must do that. You need to go back to your people and understand your people, understand the process, understand talk to those people, and that will give you a good picture of what. Don't let the buzzwords take you on a journey. In other words, let your business, let your organization take you on that journey. That helps.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, a stat I found the other day, 60% of employees will use 30 systems or more per day. So user experience is not just in the system, it's all the stuff you build around it, which is exactly as you said, Tom, which I think is absolutely spot on. You see, I say we're going to close down and we haven't got any questions, and now everyone's throwing questions in at us. You see, I love that. I love, you see, we throw them, we're going to take it away, you see, and all of a sudden everybody's interested. I love Anchor, and we've managed to get 52 minutes. No mention of AI in today's webinar, and I've just said it. There we go.
There we go. Dreaded
Does,
AI.
does it play a role in enterprise LMS integration and ROI considerations?
Certainly does. Yeah, I think there's and again, I hope I'm coming across as quite honest. I'm an honest person. I think the industry doesn't know what to do with AI just yet. I think they're finding their feet with it a little bit. I think AI. I've got. I'm quite positive about what AI will do for us in this industry. I think there are many people that are worried about it. I'm not. I think it's going to be there as a co-pilot. Sorry to steal kind of Microsoft's wording, but it's going to be there to support us in what we do to make our life more effective and productive. So it's like we're going to have assistants to help us do stuff, or things to speed up all those horrible tasks like Excel and God knows what else. And also kind of reporting and surveys and all those cool things that we want to do. Then AI will certainly play a really big part. We're seeing it in content creation. We're speeding up the whole content creation piece. We're seeing it in creating PowerPoints, for example. Now you can start to create, you can dump in a couple of topics and it'll create a PowerPoint for you. So that AI is going to definitely play a part in learning platforms and technologies. Of course it is, and it's starting to creep in now in various areas with various suppliers. But what I would say is I just don't think the industry knows exactly what they're doing with it yet. I think they're working in their labs doing what they do, looking at each other, like the car industry doing the same thing, or looking at Tesla. So I think they're doing the same thing in the learning industry. I think over the next 2 or 3 years, I think things will be a bit clearer, and we'll start to see some real innovations coming out that will make our lives a lot easier. I think there'll be some things that will scare us a little bit, depending on the roles we do. But I'm relatively positive about it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, Julian, that you say when you discuss AI on BBC News, your eyes gloss over. I think what's interesting is that what's different about maybe this technology as other technologies, it's actually reached the consumer. You talk about gamification, it's something different. You talk about micro learning, it's something different. You talk about AI or chat GPT or large language models, there's a consumer element to it now. So people see it and they recognize it. And I think that's where there's that's why there's a shift towards it. So it is interesting how things are moving. I'm going to close this down now because otherwise we'll get on this high horse and we will sit here for the next 10 minutes. So massive thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody for contributing. Thank you very much, Tom. That was a really interesting session. And as I've said before, the recording will be available from tomorrow or Monday next week. It normally comes through. Leaves me just to say a Merry Christmas to everybody and a Happy New Year, and well done for closing down 2023, Tom, with the Learning Technology webinars. We're back next year, 25th of January, like I say, where Don Taylor will be running the session. But I'm going to put everybody back into the lobby now and stop the recording. So thank you, everybody, for your participation, and we'll see you all again soon.
Take care.